Hello there, this is Lynn Reilly, author, licensed professional counselor, master energy therapist, and your host of Living Serendipitously. Today, I'm going to be talking about a topic that is timeless and relevant way more often than not: the practice of forgiveness. We as humans tend to be pretty skilled at pointing blame all over the place when we are hurt or we're angry or upset, and it shows. Watch the news for 5 minutes and you'll see that buildup of resentment and fear and all that seems to be going wrong in the world. Fear sells, right? So does anger and outrage. But you know what doesn't sell? Forgiveness, compassion, understanding. Why? Because on the surface, it doesn't feel powerful enough and it requires effort. And by nature, people resist that kind of work and they go for the easy. But the truth is, when you dig underneath that grimy exterior of disgust and frustration, there is nothing more liberating than feeling forgiveness and compassion and letting those toxic feelings go. The feeling of relief that comes with it is way more energizing than anger will ever be. This is why today we are looking at how and why forgiveness is the powerhouse of personal strength and a key element to emotional well-being, and how to add more into your life. You can learn more of these self-awareness practices and concepts in my working book, 30 Days to Me, which can be found on my website, livingwithserendipity.com, along with my children's book, The Secret to Beating the Dragon, as well as through sacredstoriesmedia.com. So let's get down to it. When you're mad, like really, really mad, the very last thing you want to do is forgive. In fact, sometimes that word just feels annoying because it feels like the last thing you want to do. Remember when you were a kid and your parent or your teacher made you say sorry if you did something wrong? Or maybe you were actually the parent who taught your kid to say sorry after they hurt someone. Or you've watched this in others. One kid gets another kid hurt and the child is upset. The parent or the teacher of the kid who did the hurting says, "Say you're sorry," to the other kid, and they do. Sorry, usually in some flat child response of going through the motions. And then the other kid responds, "It's okay." And then it's over. Except really, it's not. It's so contrived because no one has discussed the real issue at hand. Just because someone says they're sorry doesn't take away from the anger or the hurt. It doesn't actually make what happened okay. Feeling sorry or being sorry really only does so much. When we're hurt, we want to know why it happened. We want to know it's not going to happen again, and apologies do not guarantee that. What we are really looking at here is behavior and how that behavior makes us feel on both sides. For example, if you found out someone's been talking about you in a negative way, you're most likely going to be pretty mad and hurt. Maybe you thought they were your friend. Maybe you trusted them with personal information about you and now you feel vulnerable. Either way, your initial reaction is going to be, "What a jerk," and your wall of distrust is going to go right up. But let's take a look a little bit deeper. The first question to ask is, why? Why were they talking about you? Did they feel threatened by you? Jealous? Insecure in some way and wanting to make themselves look powerful by having information to share, or think they were kicking you down a notch by talking about you in a negative light? Did they feel hurt by you and your actions? It always leads back to some kind of insecurity or power play in some way. We don't talk about people when we feel good and confident about ourselves typically. So you got to ask the question, what was the motive? The next question is, why does it bother you? What emotions and insecurities did it bring up for you when you knew that you were being talked about negatively? Did you feel betrayal? Did you feel distrust? Did you have fear of what other people will think? All of those upset feelings are completely relevant, all of them. It makes total sense why you would feel that way. So the questions are, what are these emotions bringing up for you? Are you insecure if people like you? If you are, why? Do you feel like you're not good enough? How will your life change if you lost a friend or two because of it? What will that say about you? These are the deeper questions to ask yourself as to why you're so bothered by the behavior. How does someone else's behavior impact your life? Because when you're angry, you're really giving that power away. So the question becomes, what is it about that person that's having them feel powerless to be setting you up at this point with whatever the behavior is? And then the question is, why do you feel like it's impacting you so strongly? What is it about it that's triggering you? That's really feeding those emotions of negativity and frustration. If you look at the root of your discomfort, you can deal with it there. When you look at just the details, they get lost in the story of what should be or shouldn't be. If you are hurt, address the hurt. If you're insecure, address the insecurity. What do you really think is going to happen? Where does your fear lie? Are you afraid of being unlovable or unwanted or seen for the mess that you are? And you're not really a mess, but that's often the fear. Are you afraid of being rejected or feeling alone? Look at that. Feel that part. Talk to that fear. Ask it more questions. Really get down to the root. And then decide, what do you want to do about it? And remember, we're looking at behavior. So what do you want to do about the behavior that created those emotions? Because that's just it. It's the behavior that felt hurtful, not the person, the behavior from the person. How do you want to address the behavior? Do you want to call the behavior out and tell the person it was hurtful? Or do you want to hold on to the feelings you've attached to it and build resentment and ongoing walls of distrust? Do you want the person to know that the behavior is not okay and you don't accept it? Then tell them. Do you want them to understand why and how you were affected? Then tell them. Write them a letter, send them an email, call them on the phone, tell them directly in person. A lot of times people will write letters and they won't even send them. They just want to get it all out. They want to be heard. They want to feel those feelings and express them because they feel so toxic, just streaming around inside you. And you don't have to. I mean, maybe you don't. Maybe you want to see it for what it is and let it go. This is where your power of choice comes in. And it really is yours. No one can actually hurt you unless you give them the power to. You can address the behavior and your feelings around it, and that includes letting it go. What feels like the most empowering way to respond? To address it directly or to walk away and detach from it? Only you can decide this. And sit with your options. Feel them out. That's how you're going to be able to determine what feels right for you, what's the best move for you. Now, when looking at the practice of forgiveness, and it truly is a practice, we are looking at the fact that people are not their behaviors. They are the person underneath. The behavior is simply a response to a feeling. So when we are forgiving someone, we are forgiving the person, not the behavior. You don't have to forgive a behavior, nor do you have to like it or accept it. But the resentment around it, that's the part we are looking to lighten up. I've always taught my children that there is no such thing as a bad girl or a bad boy. There is only bad behavior, and behavior we can change. We are quick to forgive children when they do something that is unsavory or rude, but we do not give adults the same leeway. Why? Because we think they should know better. But the truth is, we don't do better until we know better. And to believe that every adult knows better is a real setup for disappointment. If we go back to the fact that people choose negative and hurtful behaviors when they are insecure or scared or feel powerless or hurt, we can see the why people do what they do. It shows their level of self-esteem. But if they haven't learned to love themselves or even like themselves, how or why would their behaviors change? They just may not have discovered a reason to. The boy who was beaten by his abusive father repeatedly may not have learned that it was safe to trust or love others and feels undeserving of kindness or good things in his life. So he keeps people away as an adult by being crass or insulting or starting fights for what seems like no reason. And that girl who is constantly shamed by her alcoholic mother for not being helpful enough around the house may not have learned that she was perfect as is. So she grew up believing she had to give herself away to all that she met and not do for herself, but then complain and badmouth anyone she thought was trying to be more helpful than she was in hopes that she would look better than them. The teenage boy who was shunned by his friends when he couldn't keep up in sports may not have learned to accept that his other skills were far more valuable. And that young woman whose skin broke out due to stress and hormones may not have learned that true beauty runs much deeper, even after her skin cleared up and she was a blooming beauty which attracted nonstop attention. Our experiences create our behaviors and responses until we choose ones that feel good. We will continually learn by managing the uncomfortable emotions that come with them. And until we see people for what they are, people who are learning and feeling just like us, and behavior for what it is, a response to our emotions, we will also be sitting around in a whole lot of judgment and ongoing resentment. And that feels like complete crap. Remember, the power of forgiveness is for you. It is to make you feel better, more detached from the crappy emotions, and more free to live with the limitations of feeling distrustful and protective when you don't have to. Life is not out to get you. People are not out to get you. They are going through the same trials and stressors you are. They may be responding differently because they don't know better or that's just they haven't figured it out yet. But they truly are experiencing a lot of the same things that you are. Personally, it took me 28 years to get to a place to feel like I'd really forgiven my mother for taking her own life and leaving my brother and I behind. I was genuinely pissed at her for not being skilled enough to make a life less miserable and stick around for us. In fact, I was doubly pissed at her for taking her life 5 days before my birthday, which led to a lifetime of grief and anger on a day I thought I was supposed to be celebrating myself. Instead, I was bitter and sad and disgusted by something I had absolutely no control over. Years of fear of abandonment and rejection played out in many of my personal relationships, and I never attached easily to anyone, keeping most people at arm's reach to play it safe. And it wasn't until I began to feel the impact of my faulty relationship patterns that I looked deeper into my own fears and why I was so stuck in the same cycle of disappointment. I saw that I created these walls of protection around myself that were so high in order to keep myself safe, but instead it just kept people out and me feeling lonely. And in turn, I chose behaviors that were hurtful towards others and unintentionally found ways to make myself feel even worse. And it was really usually passive-aggressive stuff. It was nothing really aggressively mean or anything. It was just real passive-aggressive stuff. And it felt terrible. When I backtracked my behaviors, I saw where the root was. I saw the impact my relationship with my mother had on me, and then I saw that in essence, my mother was not very different than me at all. She was a human who struggled and did the best she could with what she knew. She wanted good things for herself, but she couldn't always find ways to keep them. I got that. And she wanted to protect her children, not harm them. I could relate to all of this. This is how I engage my compassion and let go of my anger once and for all. When I tell you it was one of the most powerful moments of my life when I forgave my dead mother, I'm not kidding. You can't argue with someone who's not there. But I did, man. I did all the time. Now, when I feel her energy, I feel the calm and peaceful way that she always hoped I would. And I am so grateful. I practice this perspective of forgiveness with myself as well, especially knowing better to do better. Because really, we are all just trying to figure out this life while making the most of it. Anger is personally my least favorite emotion because it feels icky. So I use it as information on where to put my energy and what is asking to be addressed, to really assess how I will address it and then let it go. Where do you feel you're hanging on to anger in your life? What do you feel that anger is doing to protect you? Have you learned from it enough to be able to move on and let it go? Maybe your anger is towards yourself. What is it that you need to forgive? And if you're feeling a lot of resistance, ask yourself, what is it you are actually afraid of? What do you think is going to happen if you let the anger go? Answer that question and heal from there. You can learn more of these concepts and dig deep questions in the 30 Days to Me working book found again on my website, livingwithserendipity.com and sacredstoriesmedia.com. The forgiveness thing is powerful and is a practice indeed, but one worth looking at over and over again because the benefits are that worth it. Thank you again for joining me today, and I will catch you next time on Living Serendipitously with Lynn Reilly.